All righty, we are live. This is Wayne with Locksmith Live, and today my special guest is Mr. Guy T. Robinson. Guy, welcome to the podcast today. How are you doing?
Good, Wayne. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. You work with ASSA ABLOY and the ASSA ABLOY Academy, so tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about you and your background.
Okay, currently what I do is I work with ASSA, I work for ASSA ABLOY Academy. I've been with ASSA ABLOY and I've been with ASSA ABLOY since started actually in Los Angeles in around February of 2006, and after Katrina, because there was going to be such a large rebuilding after Katrina, and I was from New Orleans. I was asked to, one of the regional managements called me and asked me if I would interested in moving back to New Orleans just to be part of a door security solutions team. And I said, sure, it was no problem. We still had a house there, and I thought it was going to be, very interesting to move back there and deal with all the rebuilding. And it was a lot of hard work, but it was a lot of fun too.
Right. Right.
Right.
So that's great. And then you used to own a locksmith shop, right? So tell us a little bit about how that transition happened and just tell us a little bit
Well,
about your shop and
well, I've been in the industry since 1976. Back when I went to high school, there used to be a program in high school. There was two programs. It was called DE, which stood for distributive education. If you worked if you worked in an office or things like that, or a grocery store, you could go to school half a day. If it was for people who really weren't planning on going to college, you could go to school half a day and go to work the other half and still receive 3 credits. I chose to be in a program called T&I, Trade and Industry, because I had learned a little bit about the locksmith business from my stepfather. And so I started working for this very old locksmith shop that was started in 1924 in New Orleans. And I would go to school half a day and then hop on the city bus and go downtown and go work for them. And that progressed through many years. And in the mid 80s, I got a little tired and decided to take a 4-year break and go in the Army. And then when I came back, went to work for someone. But then I went when I moved if you're familiar with the New Orleans area, I moved across the lake, and my kids were younger and they needed me more closer to home. So instead of commuting into work every day, I just bought a locksmith company in a city called Mandeville, Louisiana, and started working there. And started when that actually went into at first I went into partnership with a friend of mine, Mike Leeper, and then he went and moved on and did something else, and then I took it over for the last 7 years.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And it is Veterans Day today, so I did want to acknowledge and thank you for your service, and thank you to
Welcome.
everybody else out there that has served. We definitely really appreciate that. You just can't quantify how much that really means to keeping our country safe. And when people serve, it really means something. So we want to go ahead and acknowledge that as well. So then you had your locksmith shop, and then you just kind of got tired.
Well, I knew I had been in the industry. I was about 42 years old. I had been in the industry for about 27 years at that point, and 27, 28 years, something like that. But I have to go do the math. However, I said, if it's not now, I'll be in the locksmith industry forever. So, and which is okay, but I wanted to do something else, and I knew I wanted to be a manufacturer's rep. So I sold the business, and I came home and told my wife and kids, and they were young, and so they looked forward to adventure. I always wanted to live in Los Angeles, and so we packed up and moved to Los Angeles, and I worked in aftermarket distribution for a little over a year. That's when I was offered a position as a representative for ASSA ABLOY products, and that was my goal, to do that. So I jumped on that, and I've been with ASSA ABLOY ever since.
That's great. That's great. And so now you're one of the lead trainers for ASSA ABLOY, correct?
Yes, we have well, we have four. I'm one of the trainers. We have some excellent trainers for ASSA ABLOY. I'm on a team personally with Ed Garver, Katie Flower, Joe Mayer, and Russell Corvo. So we're all trainers. We handle different parts of the country and different items, and I also work closely with the trainers for the electromechanical group over in Phoenix with Roger and Jean and now Cynthia. So we all work closely together, making sure we train in all the products that ASSA ABLOY manufactures.
That's great. That's great. So let's just jump and dive right into it here. So with the ASSA ABLOY Academy, I really think this is just like a very underutilized asset that people have access to. Tell us a little bit more about what the classes are, how they charge for them. Are there things recorded online, and then there's live hands-on ones? Just let's dive into the ASSA ABLOY
Okay.
Academy.
Dive in and you can ask questions about how it all started. Well, manufacturers for years uh, had training at their facilities. Even before ASSA ABLOY came about, there was training at the Sargent facility. There was training at Corbin Russwin. There was training at Yale, and I'm sure Legion before it was a Legion. I'm sure Schlag and all those manufacturers, Von Dupin, had training at those facilities. However, it was spotty, and the trainers, they had an excellent. Most of them had excellent knowledge. A lot of my quote heroes in the industry, they did an excellent job with training, but you didn't always get people to come to it because it was more for end users, for locksmiths at facilities and things like that. The locksmith community as a whole, well, they really it didn't. For some reason, it wasn't much of a value to have just locksmiths stop and come to the training. And for the most part, the locksmith industry, while we have a lot of nuances, I should say, we didn't have a lot of changes where pretty much the same pin tunnel lock cylinder you pin up today is virtually the same thing that's been around for over 100 years. A hinge is a hinge, a door is a door. However, what we started to notice was in the last 15 to 20 years, we've had monumental changes in the industry. Power over Ethernet locks, network access control, locks that pull down an IP address, wireless locks, intelligent cylinders and keys. So we have all of this new technology coming on the market fast and furious. And we said, wait a minute, whenever you push products on the market fast and furious, you kind of leave a glitch in the marketplace. Who knows how to work on it? Who knows how to service it? Who knows how to install it? So we started ASSA ABLOY Academy actually to teach the new products, but we started to think, wait a minute, and you've heard me say this before, if you want to be an electrician, a body and fender person, an automobile mechanic, a plumber, a welder, there's multiple trade schools in your city you can go to. However, if you want to learn how to install hollow metal doors and frames, if you want to learn keying and advanced master keying, if you want to learn about floor closers, door closers, if you want to learn about access control, basic wiring, what's available, how to specify it for the opening, how to program it, anything that deals with the security of an opening, there's not two schools in the country, let alone your city, that will teach that. So we set up the reason why this person from New Orleans found themselves in Ontario, California, is we set up a training facility. We had a building there. We set up a full-line training facility to teach everything that deals with the security of an opening. So at that facility that's in Ontario, California, we now have one in Mesquite, Texas. We now have one in Berlin, Connecticut, and we're going to have more throughout the country. We virtually teach anything and everything that deals with the security of an opening in a repetitious manner. We run it like a school, not just something you come to for 4 hours, 6 hours, and say, oh, I got my certificate. That's not what we're there for. Right. We decided to run this school and let me step back for real quick. I was asked by someone at ASSA ABLOY, one of the vice presidents, "Oh, why do you think this training facility is going to work when other ones have not worked?" And you know what? I didn't have an answer for the person. I didn't know why the other ones didn't work. And like I said, it wasn't because of lack of qualified people that knew about hardware. Some of my heroes were doing the teaching in this industry. However, so when I decided to get my graduate degree, I was going to get an MBA, but I said, wait a minute, I want to learn more about why we're not getting across what we're doing wrong in teaching. So I've got my graduate degree in communication, specifically instructional communication and business communication, to find out what we could do better to get more people to come to the classes. And I did learn a lot, that the difference is a lot of instructors who all of a sudden decide to teach, the only experience they have teaching is their parents taught them when they were children, the teachers taught them when they were children, or they taught their own children. Problem is, when we don't have children we're teaching at the facility. It's adults teaching adults, and adults learn differently than children, completely differently. So what I had to do was I had to make adjustments to the class. I'm not teaching kids. I'm teaching adults, and adults have to be taught in a certain way. And that's the adjustment I made. And lo and behold, it's been quite successful. The classes have been quite successful. The facility has been quite successful.
Yeah, I agree. And the reason that we're doing this here is we were just out in the facility out in Ontario,
Right.
California. We did the door and frame installation class with you, and I was just blown away by the cleanliness, the preparedness, the overall facility around, and just the way that you had everything. You have small class sizes, so you're not just trying to pack 30 people in a room trying to collect money. When ASSA ABLOY made it not about the money and made it about the education, that was the actual pivotal factor, and that's why you're having and seeing so much success right now. It's not like a trade show where we have to hit this amount to be able to pay our instructors, to make this amount to be able to make it worth the hotel and all of these other things that are moving parts. The training facility at ASSA ABLOY Academy is there specifically only there just to learn. It's there just to teach people. And you can see that and you can feel it in the classes while we're there. And that was a great class. It really was.
There, you saw there was so much going on with so many tools and frames flying around the place that I just had 6 people, and it was crowded, even though the facility is big. And if there's more than that, I've got now each class is judged separately on how many people we can have. But if I've got all these tools and hammers and things flying around and all this metal flying around, I really have to specifically limit that class size, to make sure no one gets hurt, to make sure no one's being left out, and to make sure that you're spending your money and your time to come to that class. The worst thing that can happen is you leave that class and say, hey, I don't know much more than when I got here.
Right.
That's the worst thing that can happen. So all of our classes designed, we limit the size because I want you to learn what you came to learn.
Right.
In our basic wiring class, you saw the setup for that. I don't know if you have a picture of the access control wall that we train people on access control. I developed and I built an access control wall. Let me see if it's going to come up.
This was mostly the frames.
Right.
Let's see here. Where's the other one? Let's see.
It's the inside of the classroom with the.
Nope.
Okay.
But these are the ones we got here. Let's talk about this one. What is this one right here?
Well, that's part of the Locksmith Academy.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that in a second. And that's them installing. I have wooden blocks. The doors can have replacement wooden blocks where the locks go. And if you look at the top, they have replacement wooden blocks where door closers or door operators would mount. So after we finish a class, we just pull out those blocks and put new blocks in. Anytime we have new installations, we take those blocks out and put new blocks in so students can feel what it's like installing a lock from scratch.
Yeah. And then,
Right
and
from
so
the beginning.
we're not wasting doors because, you know, the doors and whatnot are expensive, but it gives them a fresh canvas. So each student can kind of jump in, and it's like they have a fresh canvas to mount the jig
Correct.
and to put this stuff on here, and utilize that door and drill it just like they were doing it out in the field. You can't explain what it feels like when that drill hooks up and you know, about, you know, turns around and slaps you one if you don't have it set properly. You don't know how to explain if you're off on an angle just a little bit that you're going to blow that bit right out the side of the door. There's not a lot of room and not a lot of margin for error on this stuff.
And I always tell them, this is the place to make the mistake.
Right.
You ruin anything here, no big deal. We start over, we do it again until you do it right. It's not a big deal. You can mess up anything.
Right.
And we've all messed up. We've all had mistakes before, but you can mess up anything right here. Not only this, I also give we have a whole day of Adams right training. That they have routers, just holding the router in the hand. Most of them have never held a router or felt what a router feels like. And then when they use the router on the aluminum channels, what does it feel like to route out an aluminum channel for Adams right hardware? So they just don't do it once. One thing that the facility is set up to do, and because this is paramount in adult learning, you have got to do repetitious training. You've got to bring the information down and do more repetitious training of the information that you did give them. You have people that have these 8-hour classes and they throw a ton of information at you because they want to teach you how much they know.
Right.
Well, that's impossible. I can't teach you 49 years in a day or two. So I've got to describe the class. What did you come to learn? What did this class do this? And we've got to concentrate on just that in a repetitious manner. Because in adult learning, there's a few things you learn about in adult learning. First of all, adults need a smaller amount of information than children. I always use this example. I think I even used it when you were in class because it's prime example. My son, he came home, 2nd grade. He spouted. He was in school all day, came home, spouted off 1 through 10 in Chinese. Where'd you learn that? Oh, Mr. Tommy from the local it was a trade-in restaurant came and taught each grade how to count from 1 to 10 in Chinese. And he remembered it when he got home and for days after that. He taught them for 1 hour. That's because kids' minds are like sponges. That wouldn't happen to adults. We'd have forgot it 5 minutes after he left.
Right.
So I have got to do it in repetitious manner. Another thing is I can't keep an adult too long in class.
Right.
Too many studies have proven, this has been studied constantly, anything over 6 hours of instruction, you're done. Now, you will, as an adult, you'll be nice about it. You'll sit there. You'll be kind. You'll be respectful. But anything over 6 hours, if I give an 8-hour class, there's 2 hours you're not getting. Now, the problem is I don't know what 2 hours you're not going to get.
Right.
You see? It could be any of the 2 hours you're going to have shut down.
Right.
So that's why I limit the class to 6 hours of repetitious instruction. By doing that, though, I do have to have multiple day classes, what I enjoy doing, whether it's the access control class, multiple days, 3 hours, the basics. At the end of 3 days, I'm just shouting out scenarios and they're wiring it right up with very little assistance, almost no assistance. And I look at everybody. Could you have done that the first or second day? No. People say they couldn't have done it. But come the third day, after 2 full days, and even some in a half a day of the same repetition over and over, what they have to go through in the muscle memory of their brain, they get it.
Yeah, and I've studied that too. It's and it's absorbing information and then regurgitating the information. In order for us to learn, like if you want to get on neural pathways and whatnot, you have to absorb the information in. It takes one channel through your brain to connect some little neurons, and then for you to come back out and draw that information out right away and then do it. You know, you write, we would write in the classroom, right? We take a little bit of classroom and you learn what we're doing, right? And then there's some questions and you fill that out. So then you're automatically, you absorb the information and then you write it back out. So it's coming through a different neural pathway. So it's grooving it even deeper. Then you take it and you go on and you go do it for real outside. Well, now you've just inputted that information 3 different ways and had to retrieve that information in your brain in and out, in and out. It's going to stick. So there is a something to be said for how the things are taught as well. And I'm glad that you're really, in tune with that. What are we teaching here? What are these people doing right here?
Part of the locksmith. That's part of the Locksmith Academy. I really, since we're talking to locksmiths right now, I'd really like to talk about this.
Yeah.
After a few years, and it's a shame to say, but while manufacturers, locksmiths have always attended manufacturers classes, there's something they can gain. Manufacturers classes were highly geared to people in the architectural hardware business, whether that's spec writers, contract hardware distributors, and so forth. While a locksmith could learn things, it wasn't geared toward the locksmith, what the locksmith faces every day. And growing up in the industry, I realized what my weakness was as a locksmith, although I may have not noticed or thought it was that much of a weakness when it was. So I asked managers at ASSA ABLOY Academy if I could start an academy. And we have 3 levels that's geared to the locksmith. The first level is the apprentice level. The second level is the journeyman level. And the third level we consider a master level. Now, the first level, it's the longest one. And it's designed to take somebody with 0 experience, that the only experience they have is putting a key in a lock to go in a door, into a level of apprenticeship. And I told them I can't do that in less than 10 days. Now, at first, nobody believed anybody was going to give up their time for 10 days to do that. So we gave it. People signed up. They attended it. And I think the best thing that happened was we delivered on what we said we were going to deliver on. When they went back to their places of work, they had learned what their management or the owners sent them to learn. And one of the things we run the academy, we go over keying, master keying, key labeling, and system generation. All in all, we spend about 5 days doing that. Because while locksmiths know how to master key, they know how to do it. A lot of things what they didn't really fully grasp is key labeling using the proper BHMA blind code. And since the age of computer, they're not really good. While I know they're always going to use a computer to set up a master key system, I wanted them to know what they were looking at when they looked at the bidding list. So we do a lot of system generation. And so we spend about 4 days with that. And then we go over, I give them a break. We go over into they learn about basic architectural hardware, following the DHI format, hang the door, secure the door, control the door, protect the door. Then we go into installing the hardware. They spend a day installing deadbolts and cylindrical locks, drilling the holes, chiseling out for the strikes, for the latches. We do a whole day of Adams Right, where they learn how to change the handle on Adams Right latches, where they learn about the Adams Right deadbolts, where they learn how to put the handles in, where they route out the aluminum frames. A lot of repetition with Adams Right. Then we do a day of door closers where they install the 3 common mounts of door closer: standard mount, parallel arm, top jam mount.
Right.
We also do a day of exit devices and exit device installation, and where they also learn how to change the hands on the different types of exit device exterior trim.
Right.
So that I left out one of the days, which was the Saturday, because remember, they're going 10 straight days. They do get Sunday off.
Mm-hmm.
The Saturday that they come in, I offer them to go over anything that they learn the first 5 days that they want to go over it. But on Saturday, I teach them how to pick and impression cylinders. And I take them step by step with it, and they actually do a great job in impressioning. Most of them have never done impressioning. They really like to do it a lot. I also have Phil Aegis on one of the days that owns Freeman come in and give them while I give them I use the HPC Blitz to teach them how to cut keys. I also use the ITL 9700A. Phil Aegis comes in and gives them a whole presentation on the Freeman code machines to cut keys. So they learn how to cut keys by code when they go back to their office. They're not fumbling. They've got a lot of repetition practice on how to use those different types of machines.
Right.
The last day of the class, it ends that Thursday, I actually have them come in and I actually give them a 3-level master key system to design. I give them a set of plans to a school. It's a school, church, and office all in one. They are to label it, cut keys, key up the cylinders using multiplex system, and they can either use Accenture, what used to be Yale, Sargent, or Corbin Russwin, and use their multiplex keyways just to see how they do that. And they all actually do a great job. And that's the last thing. That's the last thing they do. It takes them about till 2:00 in the afternoon. They finish that, and I consider that passing the class when they can effectively and systematically set up that system.
Right. Yeah. And I like the way that you go about that. Is that what's going on in this picture right here? Is this the ASSA ABLOY Academy? It looks like she's doing some master.
That's our Mesquite location. That's
Yeah.
at Texas, right outside of Dallas. And yes, that's part of Locksmith Academy. That's part of the 10 days. They did a great job. In fact, I'm sorry to say I forgot the lady's name, but she was excellent. She did a really good job with it, and she was very interested. You know, women make great locksmiths.
They do. I've hired several ladies. I've had 3 female employees, and it really seems like they pick it up faster than men in most cases. And
they read instructions.
They read instructions. They follow instructions.
That's correct. They make excellent. In fact, a dear friend of mine has a mostly female locksmith company in New Orleans, Diane Photo with Acme Lock, and she's an excellent locksmith. I worked for her dad many years ago in the early '80s. He was an excellent locksmith, and she does a great job getting her people trained, and I have nothing but good to say about that company. They do a wonderful job.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's check this out here, and let's take a look at the next photo here. So this looks like you've got a wood door set up here and a big heavy duty drill. You guys buy good quality equipment down there for your academy. Yes. It's like Milwaukee stuff,
right? These
major jigs. I mean, this is not cheap stuff. There's probably $1,000 worth of tools just sitting right here in this guy's hands or more.
That's actually a beginning of our network access control class. We had put together a class. We have what's called integrated products, where the reader, door position switch, lock, everything's all into one. So they learn how to install the mortise lock. The mortise lock is mortise lock, levers, reader. I don't know if you have a picture, but they also core the door. Do you have another picture of them
I'm not sure if we got one coring the door or not.
Okay.
Some of my
They,
photos, some of the photos came through a little
oh,
grainy, but it
uh,
would be a
uh,
similar situation to this
right. They go
here.
to the other end. They use the bullseye or the moray tool
Yeah.
to drill a hole through the door,
Hmm.
all the way from one end, the hinge side to the next. They run the wire before they run the wire through. Not after they core the door, then they route out for the hinge, route out deep into the hinge pocket in order to make all the connections with the transfer hinge.
Hmm.
So that teaches the technicians how to install the integrated Wiegand products.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it looks like they've got a heck of a setup there. I mean, like I said, just there's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of product and tools and stuff there, and it's a hands-on class. You get to feel the drill, you get to clamp the jig on, you get to see what it's like when you don't put it in correctly. You get to feel like, what happens if your drill is too high a speed or not high enough, or you don't have a good enough hold on it? It can grab it out of your hands. Or like you said, the router, it's hard to prepare to somebody for holding a device that spins at 30,000 RPM. People don't really
They drop them.
You can't drop them, and you've got to have a nice clean hold, and you have to hold that sucker. To put that into perspective, 30,000 RPM on a high-speed router, your best drill that you can buy at the hardware stores, maybe 800 RPM. So you're talking about 30 times that plus, so it's definitely got a lot of power behind it. So here's the class that we did with the frames. And this is actually a hollow metal frame and a block wall. And we actually build that block wall with the frame. Correct. And so let's talk about what we've got going on here. I'm in the background there, and then we've got some safety glasses. I know that your classes are always about PPE, personal protective equipment.
Yeah, you heard me getting on everybody. Glasses. Make sure you keep them on, correct.
Yeah. And then gloves and just using things safe. But we've got an action shot here. So what's he doing right here?
Well, a welded frame comes with stabilizer bars welded to it. If you get a welded frame in, the first and to install in an opening, the first thing you should do is ground out off the stabilizers. Those stabilizer bars should never be on there when you set the frame in place. I know a lot of people do, but you should never do that, because they're not there to give you a 36-inch or whatever the frame is. They're not there to be your spreader. They're there to stop your frame from bending in shipment. The first thing that should happen is to grind those off. Now, that's a little easier said than done, because if you're doing that in the field for the first time, there's a good chance you could grind a hole in the frame.
Right.
And you don't want to do that, because now you'll be repairing a frame. So we like to give people hands-on. This is what you have to do. This is what it feels like, with step-by-step instruction how to do it correctly.
Right.
And that's what this person is doing right now, grinding the stabilizer bars off after they received the frame.
Yeah. And then right then and there, we actually got to talk about that for a second. There's a difference in grinder blades, right? Like this one had a cutting blade on it, which isn't exactly ideal for this particular task, but there's a super thin, flexible blade, or there's the big, thick, heavy blade where you just kind of zip that little tack weld. You just kind of hit that little tack weld and it'll grind it right off of there. We had to adapt and be able to use the cutting blade without getting it in a pinch or pushing too hard where it would break, and then it could fly apart and bad things happen. So that's part of that hands-on process, is understanding the type of blade that you have, the type of grinder that you have.
The person, in actuality, the person that teaches sometimes you're always bound by the person and what they used. So the person who picked that was, I don't know if you've got a picture of her. If you go back to the picture of everybody.
There she is.
There she is right there.
Yeah.
That's Valerie Bevins. She is literally one of the foremost experts on hollow metal frames. And as Wayne can attest, I'm glad he came to the class. There's nothing she can't answer. Uh,
She
she
knows her
ins-
stuff.
right.
She
She
knows her
installed them
stuff.
for
She's
over
she's been
40
in the
years.
industry for so long.
Exactly. And owned her own hollow metal frame installation company for many years.
Yeah.
So that, I noticed that she does a lot of things like she's always done them,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, so a lot of things that you get, but she did a great job, especially in showing individuals how to install this frame, coming up with a way to make a cinder block wall.
Yeah, and
And I
that's what
like the
we
way
literally do right
right.
here. Like you can
Yeah,
see, we've got that spreader bar down at the bottom. We've got a
correct.
level on there, and she's showing us how to do this. She's showing people how to do this. You just pretend this is a foundation, like this gray area or what that we're building on is just a flat foundation,
Correct.
and you erect the frame, and you have to start with that. And I'm talking like when you set this up, you have to have between 16th of an inch and 1/8 inch reveal all the way around that door when the door hangers go to come
Should
back
be an
in.
eighth inch. Right, right.
How you do that and how
Yeah,
you set it up here and now is going to totally and completely determine how the rest of the entire job goes. If you don't get
correct.
this part right, you're hosed. You're going to have a very, very, very bad time and a very bad day. So it was very, very encompassing and educational to see how the block wall is built around it, how the frame is set up initially, how the spreader bars are added, what you're doing when you're leveling, when you're testing for level, plumb, and plane, right? Those are all
Right.
three axes of the door frame, and how that actually needs to get set up, and how she teaches you how to do it with one person. Now obviously there's a
Right.
bunch of people here, but understanding how the block wall gets built around it, and even the little foam pieces of grout that you kind of put in between there. It's the
Correct.
most realistic thing that you can possibly get, short of going out and building a brick wall and mounting a frame into it. And then it
Correct.
can be torn back down so that we can continue to use it and continue to use the platform and whatnot here. And again, you can see that level over here. There's that box full of the grout and that kind of stuff here. And you actually set the little grout pieces on the block. You actually stagger the block with one block pieces, one window block pieces, and then two window block pieces so that it's actually structurally sound. I mean, just the amount of detail that goes into this class is very, very, I've never seen anything else like it. I've never seen another hands-on class like it. And literally, that's the whole wall. It goes around the corner, and you
Right.
can
Right.
test it.
And this is actually the 41st class we ran like this. That
Wow.
was her 41st class. Good, kept track of them. And she not only teaches students, she has taught our managers in the door group
Uh-huh.
that run the door companies.
Yep.
I always tell a funny story. Some years ago, we had a bunch of the managers, and one of them screamed because the frame wasn't not on this installation, but on another on one of the other installations. He screams, "Why is this like this?" And
Mm-hmm.
she yelled back at him, "I don't know. You make it." And he goes, "This is going to change." And I don't know if you remember us talking about it.
Yeah.
It changed.
Yeah.
And by them seeing how it was in the field, what people have
Mm-hmm.
to go through in the field, they made an adjustment at the factory to make it easier to go in. And I was quite fortunate to find Valerie. We were quite fortunate to find her because of frames was not my business. It's a separate entity. I wish I would have known more about it when I started out in the locksmith business, but I didn't. And while I can, like I always say, I can give you the corporate spiel, how a frame goes in, I couldn't do what she did. I can't show you every or answer every single question you would run into. So she's been a valuable addition to come in and teach this class for us when she
Absolutely.
can.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was definitely very on point and knowledgeable.
Right.
And then again, you can see the levels here. Everything revolves around the levels. So this is actually installing a frame, because we don't just do one frame. Like we do a frame in a block wall, and then we do a frame
Right.
on metal studs construction, and then we do a frame on wood stud construction, and then this would be a frame that would be installed after the drywall is already in place. And people don't really realize how much extra work it is to account for the drywall, and how much, things like wall growth that you wouldn't even think about, You don't
Right,
think about
right.
wall growth. Well, by the time you add some screws and some straps and the things that actually hold the frame into place, you really start adding a lot of things to it, and making sure that this thing stays perfectly level and plumb the entire time is one of those things that's just very, very difficult to do. And you can see the drywall. So you can see that we've got back behind this guy here, we've got just the wood studs back there, but this is the actual drywalled in one. So this one actually gets installed in pieces, where the other ones, we put them together. You know what I mean? We put them together and then kind of erect them into the frame. And then this one would be like mounting a pipe and dimple frame into the
Punch and dimple. Yeah, the punch and dimple
punch
frame.
and dimple. Yeah, punch and dimple.
Punch and
Sorry.
dimple. And
And then
I always say what we did, we east when I first came out here to the west, um, they would tell me P&D frame, and I would be like, what? Which I just had never called it that. And all of a sudden, she looked at me and she went, EO, existing opening, knowing where I came from. And I said, oh, okay, existing opening frame, which I fully knew what it was. But
right.
people in different parts of the country make most places call it P&D. For some reason, where I practice that, we always called it an EO frame.
Right.
If I would call an order an existing, it stands for existing opening frame.
Right, right. And just a couple things that we're looking at here. You've got that level back up on top. Everything revolves
Right.
around the level. We got the level on the side for level, plumb, and plane. And then we have 2 spreader bars. We cut those spreader bars in class, so they're
To
exactly
perfection.
yeah, to perfection.
You
Like
can't be,
can't be off at all.
you're not a 30-second out. I mean, she makes you do it to perfection.
Right, right.
You know?
There's no accounting for a saw blade thickness is too much to have an error on, because again, you're working with an eighth of an inch that needs to be a reveal around there.
Exactly.
So we've got one down at the bottom and then one in the middle, and then we have the levels on there. And then to find out exactly how straight and plumb it is, we use these cross strings, which was a technique that I had never seen before. But this is like an old Egyptian type.
I don't know. did she say it was?
She did. I mean, yeah, she said that's how they.
Being from where we used to use that a lot to make sure it was in plane.
Right.
We would use that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's a great way. It's a great method it's a great method.
Yeah. Yep. And then here we are again, just moving that spreader bar into place, making sure that the whole thing's staying even along the way as we're mounting the screws and mounting the bolts. There's the cross strings there. So the main idea behind the cross strings is that if it's perfectly level, plumb, and plane and square, those strings will touch, and then you take one string and you put it on the back side, and they should touch again. They should touch on both sides. And that means that you're within quite literally a hair's width of everything being square and plumb on there. So here's one of the wood frame ones. So this one right here, we actually do. This doesn't have the drywall in it, but if you'll notice down at the bottom, they actually, the way that Valerie was teaching is to have that drywall in there. And there's a piece of drywall up here too, so that we actually help the drywallers out. That was one of the things that I really liked about her class was, hey, it's not just about you and your job. Yes, you need to set the frames and you need to get paid and you need to get out of here, but don't screw the next guy over. Don't screw the drywall over.
Exactly.
Keep that width in there and keep that drywall in there so that you're setting it up so that he can come in and do his job. And then here's what they're talking about, what you get to talk about with that wall growth, where it seems like a thin little strap of metal that actually anchors that frame in place. But by the time you put that on top of the 2x4 and then put a screw on top of that, you're now building up a 32nd or a 16th of an inch on both sides, and that wall begins to start growing.
Right.
And then it makes it that much harder for the drywall to get his drywall in there. So I thought that was really cool how she had the pieces of drywall.
And Wayne, I don't know if you see it or not, or you can do it right now or not, but I just sent you 4 good pictures of the access control wall we have. I don't know if you can add that or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add
Okay.
those. We'll just go through these right here, and then
Yep.
we'll bring that
Okay.
up here in just a second. So here's these. Go ahead and talk about the mounts and whatnot for a second here.
Well, what we did was these are the anchors that hold the frames in place around the studs.
Mm-hmm.
So she tells them where the anchor should be placed, and to have a system of when you place the anchors, because she says if everybody placed the anchors in the right place, then if there was something wrong, if something broke, and you had to go cut the sheetrock and fix something, you would know about where that anchor was in the sheetrock wall.
Right.
Okay, to be able to cut it out. She made a point of saying that. I never did think about that before.
Yeah.
But she made a point of always having your system of where exactly you put the anchors.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, and that she teaches them how to, like you said, wrap it around and secure the anchors in place.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then so here we do a metal stud, and then like just
Right.
little tricks like telling the framers don't secure the studs right next to the frames because you're going to need to have them loose anyway, so that we can
Right.
actually bring that over, set it where it needs to be, and then attach that where it needs to go in there. And then we actually cut one of these stud pieces for the above portion so that
Make
they
the
have
header
something
correct.
for the drywall. The
Right.
drywall
Exactly. To screw the
anchor up
drywall
too.
too. Correct.
Yeah,
Teaches
exactly.
how to
So,
do that.
yep, you learn a lot about construction. You learn about the king stud, the jack stud.
Right.
You learn about how those things work together, and everything is all revolved around that magic little bubble right there. Everything, every part, every portion. So
I think, Wayne, what you're pointing out is this is not just a class where you coming and have
no,
somebody giving you a PowerPoint
no,
presentation for 2 days and
no,
you've got to leave. You
no.
spend and you can see why we limit the size of the class.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot going on here. We get in fact, this class literally, when I send it out, it literally fills up within 48 hours. And I get people all the time, can you just add me? Can you just add me? And I'm like, it doesn't work. I can. I wish I could. It's not that I don't want to. It's that, but I've got to worry about a lot of people's safety there also.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So this is just a viewing. Maybe you can we'll zoom in a second. One of the things I never did like, and I've taken so many of them over the course of 40 something years, is access control classes. Because people always try to teach you access control in 4 hours or a day.
Mm-hmm.
And we have excellent instructors that do an excellent job teaching 4 hours or a day. But the main issue is most people cannot learn access control basic wiring in 4 hours or a day. You need to get about 5 concepts in the muscle memory of your brain every time you're going to wire an opening. So the things that I focus on one, everything has a name.
Right.
Everything.
Yep.
We're not going to call things by colored wire. We're not going to say, oh, the blue wire, the white wire, the red wire. No, everything has a name. Every part of the switch has a name, and every part of the load has a name of when you're wiring.
Right.
If you understand the name and what the function is, then you're not confused if the wiring changes, if the color of the wire changes. Oh, I didn't practice wiring this up. I only practice wiring product C up.
Right.
Well, it shouldn't matter. A switch is a switch.
Right.
A load is a load. You've got to create a circuit. So when I repetitiously make everyone start calling every part of it by its name, then they start to understand what they're doing. Step by step, I want them to know what's happening. I want them to understand the parts of a circuit. What are you having to do? With access control, you're creating a circuit. If the circuit is not created, things don't work.
Exactly.
It's as plain as that. If something doesn't work, you don't have the circuit created. So what I did was, if you go back to the first picture, if you just go back a little bit, one picture
This one?
right here, what I did was I built this. I created this access control wall because it would bother me that I would give classes and they'd be wiring things up at their desk and they weren't fully understanding it. They were leaving it. That drives me crazy because I always believe. Believe me. Wayne and I, we were talking about this a little bit ago with Mastercan. I've designed classes so many times because I never like it when someone comes up to me and says, I didn't understand what you were saying. I don't put it on them. I'll put it on me. I've got to say it better. I've got to teach it better. So I spent a lot of weekends building this wall, and then I built each piece that comes on and off the wall, the two pieces. I put 6 different stations. I'll put 2 people at each station. And then they will learn one board is for series wiring, one board is for parallel wiring. We have LEDs, we have timers, we have switches connected to it. They have the power supplies above it because I want to make it like a real life situation. And when I give them the different scenarios on and wiring different keypads, wiring up different switches, wiring timers into it, hooking everything up in the power supply, I want them to feel like it's a real life situation. So first of all, they wire, they connect the power supply to the 110, 120, whatever it's going to be. And then they just go, I have them go step by step. And then as they get more comfortable and more comfortable, all I do is tell them, hey, I want this scenario. We want these LEDs to go on at a certain time. We want this timer to operate the fail secure devices. It may be exit devices. It may be mag locks. It may be electric strikes. It may be electric lock sets. So they get all of this training. And like I said, by the 3rd day, I'm just shouting out scenarios, and they're just going right through it with very little or no help at all. Yeah. Secondly, one of the things I also do is I don't put a person that's more experienced and less experienced together. I try to keep the same levels together in pairs, because the problem is if you put somebody with experience with somebody with no experience, the person with experience just naturally takes over and does all the work. And the other person just sitting there looking at them. Right. So, we have each board is set up. We have the power supplies set up where they run the wire. They work in pairs. Yeah. Of course, there's desk work. Of course, they do things at their desk before they get to this point. We teach how to make Molex connections for plug and play, because that's an integral part. Instead of just saying, "Oh, it's got a Molex, just cut the wires." Well, yeah, you can do that. We've all done it. But boy, when you learn how to make a Molex and you get some Molex pliers and you know how to make connectors, it's a so much neater job when you do that. Yeah. Okay.
So what do we got going on here? What is this lady doing?
She's I joked with her a lot. She was I forgot what facility she was from. She wanted to learn, but she shows up in high heel shoes. I was like, and I noticed that, oh my God,
on the ladder.
On the ladder. But she did it. She was hooked. She was actually making the connections inside the BPS. I used the Securitron BPS 24-2 linear power supplies. So she's making the connections on the inside.
Right on. And then you've got some other people working on those power supplies here.
Yep, they're making the connections on the inside. And that's one of my teammates, Russell. Russell's a brilliant engineer, brilliant trainer, especially on mechanical hardware. He really drills down, and he knows things that I'll never know about a lot of different about Sergeant exit devices and hardware. He's a brilliant guy, but he wanted to increase his access control knowledge. So he came to one of the classes, and I mean, of course, he just picked it up very easily for him.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, we're coming up on an hour here, and those are great, all great classes. if anybody is out there, I get asked all the time, where do we go to get education? Because sometimes people can't wait for a trade show. Sometimes they can't wait for, whatever's in their area. Tell us about the academy. Tell us where those academies are located, and tell us a little bit about the cost and just how it works. Like, if people want to take your class right here, right now, how can they do that?
Well, you can go to www.assaabloyacademy.com.
Mm-hmm.
You enroll in the academy. There's no charge for that. And then you can see when the classes are going to be offered. People can always send me an email at guy.robinson@assaabloy.com, and I'll also put you, depending on what you are, I have a list of locksmiths, distributors, integrators. And when I give classes, I always send out an email blast to let you know where the classes are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of places that they'll offer those one-day classes and things like that. Distribution does a great job with that. However, sometimes, okay, I've tried that and I just fully don't understand it yet. If you really need to fully understand master keying and key labeling, if you need to understand how to rekey interchangeable cores, removable cores, the different formulas with the different manufacturers. We offer multiple day classes to teach that, and we offer them throughout the country. You can also call and request classes. I give a lot of specialty classes. I'll give you an example. I had one of my ASSA ABLOY reps asked me, says, look, I got a hospital that has the Corbin Russwin unit locks on them, and they don't know how to take them apart and rekey them. And many people don't need, a lot of locksmiths have never seen a unit lock. Many have. It depends on the area that you're in. They are very difficult to take apart and rekey, especially if you've never done it before. So I set up a class and I went out and I brought some unit locks, and I taught them how to take them apart and to rekey them, and they had them do it a bunch of times. So we can actually put together specialty classes. We have classes on how to install, interface, and program automatic operators. But not just install them, interface, and program them. We also go through all the automatic operators, because not every opening's the same. Right. You've got to choose the correct one. You've got to choose the correct electric strike, right, to put on, and they have to work together. You just don't take an electric strike. Yeah. A lot of times I'm at a distribution. Many times I've been at a distribution. A locksmith came in, asked for an electric strike, and I was like, "Whoa, it's not going to work where you want it to work at. You need a different faceplate for that." Yeah. So even if you take our electric strike class, we go over all the types of electric strikes, which you should use on what type of opening. We give you a list, so you can, if you go up to an opening, you can check to see which one you use. We give give you a list for just so you'll understand if you should use mag locks, where to put mag locks, electrified lock sets. So we teach all of that in the class. We just don't tell it to you and say, oh, hey, by the way, go. We have you work through issues. We have you work through problems. We have you look at the opening and say, what would you put on this opening? And, make the check marks, what you would do with it. Yeah. And that's what people really need. Right. So that's why we limit the classes, especially in the master keying classes and in the key labeling classes. If I pack 25 people into a class, nobody's learning. Well, it's not that they're not learning. I can't see who's not learning. Right. Some are getting it. Right. But I remember the first one, and I realized this pretty early on. I had a class of about 20 locksmiths. And I did something I don't do anymore. I believe them. So I would say something. I'd be like, does everybody get that? Oh, yeah, we got it. We got it. Oh, I think, this class is going great. And I started to walk around and I went, holy cow. Nobody's getting it. They don't have it. So I don't believe anybody anymore. And I also slowed down. Right. I made myself slow down and be more repetitious, which helped out a lot. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, that's great. And a lot of these training programs are free, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Except for the hollow metal frame class. because we have to pay the instructor, and we use new frames every single time. Those classes are free. I mean, that we charge for that class. All of our other classes are no charge.
Wow.
The Locksmith Academy, it's 10 days. I feed you for 10 days, 5 dinners. I give you tools to take home. The class is $295.
Wow.
We actually,
you don't even break even at that point.
No, we're not even close to break even. But the thing is, people, in fact, I had 2 people call me during the first Locksmith Academy I gave.
Yeah.
And both of them told me it was free. We almost didn't send anybody.
Wow.
Because you were teaching it. They knew me. We're sending them.
Right.
And so we said, hey, well, we've got to charge for it. Or they're just
when they pay attention sometimes.
Correct. And Wayne, we just didn't do this because I said we should do the Locksmith Academy. We didn't do it because of course somebody in corporate said, hey, you need to do this. We did it as an answer. Like I was explaining to you, we have what's called the MSC Advisory Council. It's the top big locksmith companies throughout the country that meet every once a year.
Right.
And every time they meet, this is what they say: please start a school. We need locksmiths.
Right.
We need you all to train people. So it only took us 7 years of listening to them, but we finally did it.
Finally got it.
It's working out great. ASSA ABLOY's been hugely supportive, and they like the way it's going. So I think we're just going to continue to keep doing it. Okay, it's been working out really well.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. You're always flying around teaching people.
I'm in Detroit right now, starting 4 days of classes tomorrow.
That's great. That's great. So thank you again for being here today.
Thanks, Wayne.
And do you have anything else, any last minute stuff before we leave?
No, I hope, please feel free to email me with any questions. Like I said, it's guy.robinson@assaabloy.com. You can email me anytime, send me information. And if I don't have the answer to your question, I know who does, and I can forward it right to them. Okay. Because as a locksmith, I realized one of the things I always try to help do is get people's questions answered. That was the hardest thing for me as a locksmith. When there was something I needed information, finding information used to take a long time. Yeah. Hopefully I cut that down and get it to you as fast as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Anytime we've had a question, you've answered it right away. And that's been really, really good. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. We'll see you later. Have a great day, Guy. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Good night.
See you, everybody.